Delighted to welcome to the show right now Housing, Communities and Local Government Secretary Robert Jenrick. Good morning to you.
Hello, good morning,
Good
Julia.
morning. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, I know today you are rolling out your big plan to regenerate England's cities with new homes. We know that building more houses is an absolute crucial mantra. It's a mantra of this show. If in doubt, build more houses. What are you planning to do?
Well, as you say, we are absolutely committed as a government to building more homes. It's a matter of social justice, it's about intergenerational fairness, and it's about creating jobs for people in an economic downturn. We want to build them in all parts of the country, frankly, but particularly in cities and our big urban centres. That is the place where you've got transport infrastructure, there are jobs and opportunities, it's the most environmentally sustainable place to be building. So we're going to be asking the 20 biggest cities in England to go significantly further than what they've done in recent years. And we're going to be working with them, giving them more resources to remediate brownfield land, to repurpose those offices and retail parks and centres that have been hit by COVID into good quality new family homes, to get more people on the housing ladder and to breathe new life into our cities.
I'm all in favour of all of that. However, last time I looked, we had an algorithm in place that was going to basically allow house building across the entire country, including a lot of those leafy areas which have Tory MPs, the Tory shires, I suppose. But now we're told that some 80 Tory MPs objected to that planned algorithm to just sort of distribute that target between all the different local councils. So that's why you're now justifying only building in the cities. Are we just not going to build homes in? Basically, it's NIMBYism, isn't it, by any other name? It's just if you're in a nice leafy area with a Tory MP, you don't have to build new homes, but everyone else does. Does that seem fair to you?
Well, I want to build homes in all parts of the country. I want to build them in Surrey as much as I want to build them in Stoke-on-Trent, because the need is there and we want to help young people onto the housing ladder. I do think there's two legitimate questions that have been raised in recent months. Firstly, COVID is creating this once-in-a-generation opportunity to transform offices and retail into homes in our cities. And so let's grasp that and make sure that's actually happening with planning reforms that create the greatest flexibility for businesses and individuals to do just that. We're seeing that in other countries around the world, like New York, for example. So we want to be ahead of the curve. And secondly, we want to be pushing private sector investment in housing into the Midlands and the North, getting developers and institutional investors to be playing their part in regenerating the likes of Derby and Liverpool and Newcastle, as much as they have done in recent years in central London.
All right.
That's the mission at the end of the day of this government.
I mean, I would love to spend longer on this issue, because I think this is a huge issue for people in their lives in the future, because there are more pressing issues for a lot of people. Next Wednesday, in a week's time, we're supposed to be having those 5 days of Christmas where up to 3 households can meet and travel between different tiers to spend time over Christmas. Calls from the BMJ, the Health Service Journal, Keir Starmer, Sadiq Khan, many others for those 5 days of Christmas to be cancelled, or we'll have a spike in coronavirus cases and we'll have another lockdown. Is Christmas going to be cancelled or not? Robert Jenrick, have we lost you?
It's certainly not going to be cancelled. No, I'm here, Julia.
Excellent.
It's certainly not going to be cancelled. We have a legal framework in place which allows people to come together for up to 3 households or bubbles for up to 5 days. We are saying that this is one of those occasions where we all need to exercise personal judgment and think about our own families, whether we've got elderly relatives, whether people are clinically extremely vulnerable, whether we or members of our family are living in parts of the country where the rate of infection is high and rising, and come to our own informed judgment as to what's right for our own families and for the country more broadly. And I think hopefully that's something that people will support, and I'm sure those conversations are happening at breakfast tables across the country right now.
Indeed. Michael Gove, the Cabinet Office Ministers, meeting with the leaders of the devolved nations or representatives later today, I think in about an hour or so's time. Whether that meeting happens, COBRA meetings, any further efforts from the Keir Starmer and others to get that changed. Can I just clarify? You said we certainly are not going to be cancelling Christmas. Can you categorically state 100% those rules will not be changed? People can travel to visit their families and keep to that 3 household max rule from next Wednesday. 100%.
We have no plan to change.
It's not 100%, is it?
We have no plan to change the legal framework.
So it could happen.
The legal framework is a maximum, and within that, people, I think, will need to exercise their own judgment as to what's right for them. And you, Julia, have long supported that approach, where we all use our own good judgment. We listen to the evidence, the science. We see what's happened around the world, like Thanksgiving in the United States, for example, which did lead to a rise in the number of cases, and come to our own informed decisions about what's right for us.
Why is the only time since the beginning of March, is the only time in this entire year that we think that families should be allowed to exercise their own judgment is for 5 days in December? Why do we think that British people are too stupid and irresponsible to exercise their own judgment all the other days of the year?
Well, that's not right. The restrictions that we've had, the restrictions.
Why do we have to have laws then?
Well,
telling us that we can't meet up with our family members.
And the restrictions we put in place since March have always been the maximum. Now, they've often been very restrictive, but they've been the maximum. People have often chosen to do less. The rule of 6 didn't mean you had to bring 6 people together. People have often chosen to bring fewer people together, particularly if your own circumstances suggest that's a sensible thing to do.
But they didn't have the option to exercise their own judgment to have, say, 7 people in the same room, did they? So we didn't trust their judgment. I'm asking, why are people trusted to make that? I think people should have been trusted to make their own judgments all year, not just for 5 days at Christmas. I'm intrigued to know why you and the government think that people aren't trustworthy any other day of the year, but miraculously on the 23rd of December, they can be trusted.
Well, the restrictions, as I say, that have been in place since March are always a maximum.
That's irrelevant.
That's
irrelevant.
Well, it's not.
No, it's not irrelevant. No, sorry.
Christmas is the same situation. It's not a free-for-all. There's a legal framework in place, so you can't bring together more than 3 households or bubbles, and you shouldn't be doing it for more than 5 days. What we are saying is that it's one of those occasions where it's very hard to legislate for every eventuality. People's families are very different. They'll need to think carefully about what's right for them. There will be some people who will come to the conclusion, my own family has actually come to this conclusion, that actually we won't have Christmas in the same way we would have done in the past because my parents are elderly. They hope to be vaccinated in the weeks and months ahead and think it's better for us all to reunite.
And you didn't need a law to decide that, did you? You were able to make that decision as a loving son and daughter-in-law that you wouldn't put your elderly relatives at risk. Why do we think that people, until next Wednesday, need a law stopping them from doing that? Are they just too stupid and irresponsible that they'll go and put their elderly relatives at risk?
No, not at all. We trust people to make
But then you don't need the law, do you?
The law provides a backstop. So the law says what the maximum is. Below that, people will be making judgments up and down the country. And I think Christmas is one of those occasions where that is very important. I mean, there will be some people who have been longing for Christmas. There will be some elderly, vulnerable people for whom they might not know if there will be many more Christmases to come and will want to come together and take that informed risk and judgment. But we're going to be trusting people within the confines of the law. Okay.
And no plan right now to change it. But that, again, no plans, as we know, is a Sir Humphrey speak for it could be changed. Let's talk about vaccines. The big hope for getting out of all this horror of the past year is having a vaccine rollout. Do we know yet how many vaccines have actually been given out? We had 800,000 at the beginning of last week. We've had a whole week. We've told that only tens of thousands a couple of days ago had been actually given out. Do we know now exactly how many vaccines have actually been given to how many people?
We haven't published the data yet. We do know that tens of thousands, as you say, of people have been vaccinated. There will be people being vaccinated as we speak right now across the country. What we have chosen to do is to wait a few days or weeks to make sure that the data is verified and robust.
Waiting a few days or weeks?
Well, I think that's the right judgment.
Why?
We've moved very fast as a country. We are the world leader on the vaccine rollout front. We have more vaccines than any other country at the moment.
That's no use. No, vaccines have no use sitting in cold storage. They need to be in people's arms. They don't start working until you give the first dose. So what we need to know is, again, brilliant that we ordered the vaccine, brilliant in advance, brilliant that we got it approved first, brilliant we rolled it out first. Rounds of applause on all front. But we need to keep rolling it out. We knew we were going to get the vaccines at some point. I want to know, how many have been given? Tens of thousands is the answer I was given a couple of days ago. I don't still want to be getting that answer next week from Cabinet Ministers because that suggests that we've not even hit the 100,000 mark. Why could we not, in a week, knowing in advance we were going to get this vaccine at some point, why could we not have vaccinated 800,000 people by now?
Well, I think you're conflating two things. How fast we're rolling out the vaccine and when we're going to start publishing the data. We're rolling it out as fast as we possibly can. We're working with hundreds of GP surgeries across the country already, and we've rolled out tens of thousands.
But not 100,000. So tens of thousands means under an eighth of the vaccines that we've got in this country, we've actually given out in a week. That doesn't bode very well for vaccinating the majority of the population by spring, does it, really?
Well, on the second point, on data, we're going to make sure it's robust, and then we'll start putting it in the public domain and start updating it regularly, so journalists and commentators such as yourselves will be equipped with that and can rightly hold us to account. There is a big job to ramp up the production and then the vaccination program.
Why is it hard to get the data? No. Why is it? No, Mr. Jenrick. Oh, no, you can keep saying that. That counts for nothing if people haven't actually got the vaccine. If you're not one of the people who's got the vaccine, that's no use to you at all. This is the thing. Okay, if you're an elderly relative of someone right now, you're desperate to get the vaccine. You know where the vaccine is, and you know where it goes to go and vaccinate people. At the end of each day, how many people have you vaccinated today? Tick, tick, tick. Right, we've done 10, we've done 1,000. Lovely. We have email now. We have apps. Surely that can be collated within, I wouldn't expect it by 6 p.m. every day, but within 2 days, we could know how many people have been vaccinated. So on a Wednesday, we'd know how many people have been vaccinated on a Monday, if there was a will. Is it not possible, very likely, that the reason why we don't know how many people have been vaccinated yet in public is because it's not very many people?
Well, we are doing that work. We are collating that data in exactly the sorts of ways that you're describing, working with GPs and other health settings across the country. The question is when we put that into the public domain. And we've learned over the virus.
Why don't we have a right to know that? You're very happy to put into the public domain how many people are dying. Why don't you put into the public domain the good news, how many people are being vaccinated?
Well, we are putting all these different sorts of data into the public domain. The most important thing to do, Julia, is make sure that when we do that, it's robust and people can rely on it.
Why does that take weeks?
And we don't see change on it. And that's going to happen soon. The health secretary
You said days or weeks. So weeks. We may not know for weeks how many people have been vaccinated.
Well, as soon as possible, the health secretary will be starting to publish the data. But what people can see now is the vaccine rollout is proceeding at pace. There are hundreds of GPs participating. It's not. That's the whole point.
It's not proceeding at pace. That's the whole point. You said basically under 100,000 people, and that's the math. Let's be generous and say 90,000 have been vaccinated by now. That's basically just over 1,000 a day. That's, sorry, 100,000 a day. That's rubbish.
Well, I don't think that's correct. Actually, I think that our record.
I can't even do my maths. 10,000 a day. Sorry.
The progress we're making is actually very good. And you said it isn't relevant to compare ourselves to other countries. I think it is relevant. We were the first country in the world to secure a medically efficacious, verified vaccine. We're now rolling that out. Of course, we hope that Oxford AstraZeneca's vaccine will also be verified by the regulator in the coming weeks. And that will put us in an even stronger position because that's much easier to roll out across the country. And we are expecting hundreds of thousands of people to be vaccinated before the end of the year. The data will be published as soon as it's robust and we can put it in the.
We shall wait and see, and no doubt talk to you about it again. Robert Jenrick, Housing Secretary, very much appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much indeed.